Okay. Yeah, I get what you're saying about that that frustration, Helen. I do remember. It's fading for me, my memory of being frustrated, but I do remember being that way. I never got, well, I suppose there were times when I felt depressed about it, but I would never say that I got to a clinical depression as a result of that frustration. Mine was more the manic side of manic depressive way of doing it. I was obsessive
Mine's,
and
yeah,
driven.
yeah, I am. Yeah, I am. But it's almost like I've been obsessive about psychology, and then leading on a lot of subjects, then leading on to non-duality.
Yeah.
And it's become so obsessive over the years that once I'd sort of realised there isn't much to know because it's all in mind, I'm searching all through mind, and it's all mind. I thought, I've got nothing left, nothing left.
Yep. Yep. Now, you say you've got nothing left, and the tone of voice tells me that you're a little puzzled, and it's not your. How can I put this? For me, that I've got nothing left is a cause for celebration. Oh, isn't it fantastic? I've got nothing left. And it sounds for you like it's not that way. It's like
No.
you're locked into this something being missing. You're locked into an absence of something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's sort of, mind has been my help and savior, and I've always turned to mind, and
Yes.
now
Yeah.
it's gone.
Yep. 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 It's gone. It's gone. But what what you thought it was giving you is what you're really missing. You're feeling like what the mind used to do for you doesn't happen anymore because you realize that the mind is just a lot of hot air. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So my question is, how are things still working? How is it that you're still upright?
No, I
Yeah.
don't know.
Again,
I don't know.
again, it's fantastic that you don't know. It is so good that you don't know. Yes. Yeah. But things are still happening, aren't they? Life
But
goes
what
on.
is it? What is it that's making them happen?
Well, who
It's
cares?
that. But
Yeah. Why are you obsessed with an answer to that particular question? What 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 if I told you there is no answer to that? That the human mind is too puny. It cannot possibly comprehend an answer to that particular thing. Great, this is great. Let it go. Let it go. Yeah. Oh, isn't it just freedom to let it go? Oh, and you are absolutely safe in free falling. Absolutely safe.
would be my freedom if I was safe.
Say again?
That would be my freedom if I knew I was safe.
Yeah. Well, you're still here. You're still breathing. And those tears weren't really painful, were they?
No.
You know, I used to do hypnotherapy at one stage, and one of the classic stage hypnotherapy things is to put somebody standing against a wall and put their hands on the wall, and then in a hypnotic state tell them that they're the only reason that the wall is still standing, that they have to put some pressure on the wall to keep it upright. And you can imagine and that's what you've been doing. You've been holding up that wall all your life.
Oh,
And you don't
no.
get to hold it at all.
So many people are.
Absolutely.
And you can't do much for them.
But we did for Helen.
This is, I guess, what classics say, liberation through suffering, right? That there is a breaking point, that you just can't go any further, lifting that burden. Then you realize that if you are not lifting that burden, nothing happens. If you just leave it and not pick it up anymore.
The crazy thing is that incredible weight that we've been carrying is all mind made. How can the stuff of thought weigh 5 tons?
We are no different to animals, to cats and dogs. They just don't have that many thoughts, I guess. They're not building up that weight. And they are still living. They are still all right. They are perfectly fine. They are better than us most of the time, less miserable, just because they are thought-free and burden-free. They can be in pain, but they don't suffer that much.
And a lot of animals have a physical response to that stress. Like, for example, a typical one is a goose. You'll see the goose after they've been stressed, they'll just shake it off and go on like life has never been anything but what it is. Yeah. And a lot of animals have do that. I always used to wonder about animals getting eaten by other animals, and there's a point where they just basically they just commit suicide by thought, in that they just have total acceptance of whatever is happening, and there is no suffering at all. They're just gone as some other thing is devouring them. And that acceptance is part of this wonderful freedom. You know, the burden that we're talking about can only exist in the future. It doesn't exist now. It requires us building a story about what will or might or should happen. And that's the burden. It's always about the future. And the present this is a weird one. The present doesn't exist, because when you think about the present, there's a time delay, and what you're thinking about is already in the past. By the time you become aware of what's going on now, it's already finished. And as a result of it being finished, there's absolutely zero value in thinking anything about it, anything at all, especially how it should be different, or it could have been different, or we want it to be different. That's just crazy waste of everything. So although I say the present doesn't exist, I also say that's all there is. There is only
That's all we've got.
Yeah. But what we've got is nothing. It's not here. I love seeing you guys. Hey, I can just be totally spontaneous and just let it all out here with you guys. And it's not something that happens in normal everyday life. Well, but to a much lesser degree, but yeah, this is great. I love it. Thank you, Helen, for being so open to spontaneity. That's just beautiful. It's good to see you, Lisa Jane. How is life for you these days?
Vince, it's okay. I'm hanging in there.
That's a good social answer.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
Mm.
Yes, the truth is, I'm just like full of despair, but nobody wants to talk about that. So
I do.
you just say you're okay.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about it. Do you say bored?
No, I said I'm full of despair.
Full of despair.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy, you know. I look at you and I see a happy, healthy person. Well, not real happy, but kind of happy, you know. Okay. And yet I know that's just the outside skin, and that inside is all this other stuff boiling around. And it seems crazy that I can't see that. I just know it's there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't mind hearing about despair.
Oh.
I think it's beautiful, actually.
Well, I'm kind of the queen of trauma. And the thing that's like, this is gonna sound ridiculous, but the thing that has just really triggered me this time, and everything triggers me these days. Didn't used to, but boy, now it does. Everything is Jimmy Buffett died. And I'm just fucking devastated. And I know that sounds kind of silly, but he played a huge part in my life. And so I'm getting all these flashbacks of all these decisions and all the crazy things that I've done in my past. And I don't know, I'm just sad.
Mm.
I don't know why I'm sad. I mean, he had an amazing life, but it just,
Yeah, it's funny the significance of things like that. For me, the significance that really hit me straight away when I heard the news was that he's the same age as me. I'm like, oh shit, that was he's that was young for him to die. Yeah. But I have great feelings for that music. That was always good music. I guess I'm a child of the 60s.
yeah. I think for me, I mean, I had such a freaking terrifying childhood that I decided as a teenager to just, for a lot of years, I was just a party girl. I kind of lost myself in addictions, which is, there's a lot of trauma and despair involved around that, but it's also, there can be a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun, and I can't deny that. And yeah, when all my cool friends were off following the dead doing psychedelics, I was drunk off my ass on tequila leading the conga line at Buffett shows, following him around.
Mm.
But besides all the party stuff, he was a total poet that when I was a kid, the lyrics to his songs totally spoke to my heart, and he made me feel like I wasn't alone in the world. And there was at least one other person out there that understood, you know. in the early days of his music before he became such a capitalist. But
So feeling understood, it's so important, isn't it? And yet it comes from imagining stuff. It's like that. I was talking to Bianca earlier, and we one of the things we discussed was this inexplicable feeling of connection. When we have a sense of connection, it's so important. It's such a big thing. It's such a good thing, and yet we can't explain it at all. We can't explain it physically. We can't explain it in any way. We just know that there it is, and it's a wonderful thing. Hey, what do you think about that? So somehow you had that with Jimmy Buffett, that sense of connection.
right.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've had it a lot of times in my life, but you know, it's like I can kind of punch my way out of all these stories and this way of being, and I start feeling lighter and being in the moment and seeing things. And then there's like life throws these events at me, like you don't get to stay there, get back to where you're supposed to be, you don't deserve anything good, you know. And I know that it's just like this stupid belief, but I can't shake it. I can't make it go away. I don't, and I've tried everything. I mean, for years, this isn't some new thing, you know. I've been trying to fix myself for as long as I can remember, and I don't know how to do it. I have no idea, you know. And now I've gotten myself into this thing where well, I've had stage 4 breast cancer for 16 years, and so I was supposed to die a long time ago, and so my whole life is about just trying not to die, trying to stay alive, trying to cure cancer. You know, I mean, that's how far I've, you know, gone down the rabbit hole of having to fix things. Now I have to figure out how to biohack cancer so then I can be okay and live my life. You know, I mean,
Hmm. I want you to be okay with having cancer.
I had it for a really long time. You think I would be, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's like it comes from the fundamental belief something's wrong with me. And
Yeah.
I carry a little bit of that myself, you know, always looking to perfect something, my health or my blood work, or okay, well, let me improve something around my home. There's this constant perfecting that it's just going to play out. It's just going to play out because, like you said, there's nothing I can see. I can see it, but there's nothing I can do about it. But just, you know, watch it play out and watch the mechanics of it unfold so that I can see through that story of it, that belief, that fundamental belief, something's not good enough, something's wrong, something's broken. And just watch it play out. It's just the journey, I guess.
So
There's not something wrong, but something's wrong.
So just die.
no,
So just stop. fighting and die? You know, I don't.
That
No,
doesn't.
no, because
that
you
doesn't
think
matter.
you're doing the fighting. You think you're doing the fighting. Maybe you're not. Maybe that wrestle out of the cocoon into a butterfly is actually happening organically, and but the mind thinks that it's doing it and then claims it as I'm doing it. Maybe it would happen maybe it would keep happening even if you weren't thinking it. Something would show up on the internet or YouTube, or more information or more options. So you aren't fighting to live, and you think you are. Your mind thinks it is. It's possible this would just be happening with or without you thinking that you're doing it. And then the mind says, well, I'll just
That's what
quit.
everybody in non-duality land has told me. Just stop.
You can't
going to the doctor. Stop. Just stop. It's
but you
like, well,
can't. But you can't stop, because that's what is happening. Who would stop other than the mind that has thoughts that it should stop? The mind that thinks that, okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop doing this and lay it down. Well, who is that mind that is thinking those thoughts? It's just happening. You're looking, you know, the organism, the dynamic, the energy is seeking for a cure, and maybe in that seeking revelation happens, but you're not doing it. It's just the way the organism is unfolding. It's just the life. So you can't stop. Who would stop? That would just be the same control, only inverted. But you aren't doing it. It's just what's happening. And the mind is so tired of believing that it's doing it that it wants to start believing that it can stop doing it. But those are just thoughts, opposite polarity thoughts. I need to get a cure for cancer. No, I'm so tired. I need to stop getting a cure for. Those are just thoughts happening. They're not controlling anything. And what happens is more options for possible story of cure of cancer, which might create revelations. I'll tell you, my eating disorders, when I quit fighting them and I'd sit down and eat that bag of cookies and just watch the mechanics of it, what I was feeling before, what I was thinking, what I was making up, it let go of me. But I couldn't stop it. You know, I could white knuckle and try to, but that's just the mind playing games. Life unfolds the way life unfolds, and revelations come.
And what do you think about that one, Lisa?
it's kind of what's been happening. You know, I ran out of money a long time ago. I mean, I've sold my house, I've sold everything. I'm homeless. I'm in that good old United States medical poverty trap we have going on. If I want to have health insurance, I have to be really, really poor. And so if it wasn't for friends, I mean, I'd be living under a bridge. And
And what did you think about what
there isn't the
Jenny
money
was
to
saying?
do all the things I was doing. And as far as like, I kind of stopped, you know, I had like this whole regimen that I did for years, and I'm ADD and kind of artsy. And so it went against my whole being to do all the things I've done for 16 years, you know, I just pushed and pushed and pushed, and I just don't give a shit anymore. I mean, cookies, you know, I don't know. It's like, I guess I've kind of accepted the fact if I'm going to die, I'm going to die. It can't be any worse than what this has turned into. Because life is no fun. It hasn't been for a long time.
Well, you are going
And
to die, that's for sure.
the revelations that you're getting from this, you know, the revelations of how efforting is. I tell you, seeking was exhausting, and I couldn't stop seeking until I was done. And sure, it shows up here and there in little places, you know, but I catch it, and I go, oh, look at your seeking. But
No, thanks.
but the revelations, like if you look at the revelations you're getting from getting exhausted, like when Helen was beautifully crashing out of the belief systems in tears. Oh my goodness, how glorious. See, you're doing that too, only it just looks different. It looks different. It's not beautiful to you, just like I don't know if it was beautiful to her in the moment. But to hear, watching the surrender, and then some it just falls, and some it like crumbles a little here and a little there and a little here and a little there and a little here. And mine seemed to be a little more drawn out. Mine, you know, I guess I had a few where there was a letting go that was quite large, but a lot of mine seems to be drabs and dribbles here and there. And my mind loves to know things. And now getting that key is, oh my God, my mind loves to know things that it can't know, because even the thought that it can know something is a thought. There's nothing to know. And so what I'm saying is, as you find however life is unraveling you, and the realizations that come through it will come. You can't get them, but they come.
Yeah, and I mean, that's happening a lot. And there's like, I mean, like, there's so many crazy things that are happening. Last week when I was here, I was sanding and painting my friend's kitchen because I totally set it on fire the day before. Like, set my son on fire, set my friend Jack on fire. It's a long story, but I mean, the kitchen's fine. I got to buy a new stove. I fixed all the damage but I mean, just like stuff like that happens to me all the time, like weekly, these like big, huge, traumatic things. And it's like life's throwing all these triggers at me. And I'm not talking about Jimmy Buffett. I'm talking about big stuff from my childhood. And it's all like coming like at once, you know? And
are you feeling them? Are you dropping in and feeling it? Because it's going to keep throwing it to you until you drop in and feel it.
for as much as I can, you know? And it's so hard to stay with pain. I mean, I just panic, and it's interesting, all the things that my mind will jump through, and the things that, you know, and I finally, I mean, I'm 59 years old, and I've been trying to meditate since I was a teenager, and I cannot sit. When I can get into that state when I'm walking out in the woods, but the sitting with the thoughts and the feelings, and it goes way back in my childhood. You know, there's a lot of things I remember, but there's a lot of things that I don't. A lot of stuff's happened.
Sitting is very sitting is very hard on the nervous system when it's that. I know when I first started sitting, it was like I was on freaking fire. So sitting might be too intense. Your nervous system may not be able to contain it. So being with it when something gets triggered, go for a walk. Go for a walk and be in nature.
That's what it feels like when I'm trying to sit with it. It feels like self-punishment, you know, like I'm forcing myself to just.
It's very hard on the nervous system when it might not be able to have the capacity to contain it. So go for a walk where you can, where you're not working so hard, you know, and you're in nature, and maybe barefoot if you can, and just be in nature while you're crying and being with those feelings. Don't punish yourself anymore. Don't work so hard trying to sit still and do meditation. Meditation is just walking in nature is meditation. Meditation is just a label we've put on something, and then we have this story about what it's supposed to look like.
Yeah, for me, it was just kind of another thing to fail at. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a trap. It's a trap. The sitting is a trap. I also tried for many years to sit, and I succeeded. Yeah, strong will. I forced myself. I won. Pointless. It is really pointless. It's the way that your mind works or doesn't work is a meditation or not. It's not sitting. You can be standing, you can be walking. It doesn't matter at all.
Whatever relaxes the mind. And if walking in nature is what
Yeah.
eases your nervous system so that you can be with what is being triggered, then that's what matters. And even if it's only 3 minutes to start, you don't have to do like an hour walk in the woods and sit with it all at once, because your nervous system may not be ready to contain that yet. But it grows, and it gets
I
stronger.
walk in the woods every day. It's the only thing that.
And be with the triggers. Yeah, just be with the triggers. Yeah. And be with the fear of the breast cancer and the fear of the belief in death. Because that's what it is. It's a belief in death, that we've been lied to, that we die. I'm not saying we don't drop bodies or whatever that seems like we're doing, but the fear of the belief in death, because even death is a thought. But it generates real sensations in the body, that fear and that anger. And that's what you be with, the sensations in the body when you're walking in the woods.
It is designed that way. You have to fear death, otherwise you wouldn't have basic instincts to live. So it is just a biological mechanism. So we have to fear death. This is the way we are designed. Our bodies are designed. Our minds are designed. Intellects as well.
Well,
So
the body
this is
repels from.
normal.
Yeah, the body will repel from death just like an animal, right? But
Yeah.
the mind makes up a story about death.
Yeah.
That's what's scary. The body's
What
not
will
afraid
happen
of death. It
next?
naturally moves away from it just out of but the body mechanism does that, but the mind makes up this scary story of heaven and hell and death and whatever, eternal abyss or whatever, non-existence anymore. Whatever that mind makes up is the scary stuff. That's the trigger. That's what you want to sit with.
I get the impression, Lisa, that you operate all the time with this avalanche that's about to happen, or that could happen very easily. This avalanche of horror, of pain and suffering, and it's always there waiting to fall on you if you just even momentarily stop holding it up. Is that the way it is for you?
Yeah, that's how it's always been since
Yeah.
I can remember, you know.
See, so the stuff that Jenny's talking about is the other side of an idea, and that is, she's recognized that the idea of holding it up is just an idea. She's recognized that that's an illusion, but you're still deluded by it. You can't not hold it up because of that intense fear that it'll just smother you, that you'll die as a result of it coming down on top of you.
Ultimately,
living
when
in
that
hell.
fear is, and ultimately when that fear is felt through, because it's an unintegrated trauma in your being from wherever, and that's a story, but that sounds good. But when that's felt through, then who cares, man? You lit the kitchen on fire. You repaint it. Next.
And I get that, because there's been times where I understand everything you guys are talking about, where everything is just okay, even though I have the same past and all the same current things are happening. It's all just fine, but I can't ever stay there for long. And when I pop back out of it, it seems to like be getting worse and worse, you know, and then I don't know when it's going to happen again or if it ever will. And I feel like lately, my whole life, people have told me how resilient I am, you know, how many things I've lived through, how strong I am. Well, like it's some kind of fucking compliment. And
Well, the mind can't
I think
slap.
that's what's holding me back. It's like that thing where like, no, you know, stand strong, you know, don't let this get to you, don't you? And I know that's what's
Yeah,
holding
that's
me back from feeling joy or anything good, but I can't make that go away. I don't have to.
You are fighting mind with mind. Have you
yeah.
noticed?
And you can't make it go away, and you can't pretend it doesn't bother you. Because if
You're
you say,
holding
oh,
two enemies together and you're just
everything's
poking them
fine.
together.
Yeah, everything's fine. That's the mind slapping okayness on top of this that's going on inside. And so ultimately that balloon's going to pop up out of the water, because you can't just slap on everything's fine because everybody tells me, and you can even get yourself to believe it for a little while. But then this comes up because this not okayness is okay. It's okay to be there. It's okay to feel it.
But that's what it's like. I've spent the majority of my whole life feeling not okay. So
You feel it till you're done feeling it. It's just
you
pulling you
know,
back. You're just gonna feel it for the next freaking 20 years if you have to, because you're trying to fix it. You're trying to make it go away. I'm gonna feel it now, so then it'll get better. Okay, I'm gonna feel it. Okay, watching the clock. You just feel it till you're done feeling it. And sometimes it does feel forever. But that's the part of it's okay to not be okay. And nobody likes to talk about this. What would you say? What were you feeling?
despair.
There is beautiful when you're okay with it. Despair is not okay with people who don't know how to be with their despair. To those who can be with their despair, but despair is beautiful.
There's another way to look at this that's really interesting. And that is, if you can imagine that you don't have any control over anything, and that what happens for reasons that can't be comprehended. They just happen. And so anything that you bring to the table is just going to complicate what's happening more. So the least complicated, that doesn't mean it's not complicated, but the least complicated life can be for you is when you bring nothing to the table, when you simply watch what's going on. But you see, the irony is that we're talking about you can do something, like you can watch what's going on, or just
Well,
watch
that's the
what's going on.
problem. I totally understand what you're saying, and I've been there. Not that long ago, I was there for a couple days, you know, but I don't know how to. But I'm not there now, and I don't know how to get back there, and I don't know what to do except just kind of
Okay.
hang out here in the shitty place.
Well,
Because what else am I gonna do?
I can tell you a secret that's not a secret, but the secret is that you were there for a couple of days and then it went. And you know why it went? I mean, I don't actually know. I'm making this up, but I think it went because you wanted to keep it.
And you covered it up with mind stuff because it is there all the time. You just build up on top of that with anything that came up.
And who would you
It's
be
still there.
without it? Who would
Yeah.
you be without it? That's who I am is someone that bad things happen to. And who would I be without it? And you can say that you'd know.
You've never been without it, though, have you? You've got no idea what it'd be like to be without it. You wouldn't be Lisa anymore. It'd have to be somebody else altogether.
Familiar and awfully uncomfortable, comfortably uncomfortable, comfortably uncomfortable. But it's familiar and it's known, and you know what to expect tomorrow.
So can you get that all this horror is your safe place? Wow.
It could be by now. That's most likely.
Yeah. Because
That's
it's
the
what
only
I know.
way you know.
And yeah, and there's been times where so last summer I had a really amazing summer. I was gardening for money, and in these beautiful gardens. The woman had died, and I got to recreate her gardens for this garden show. So it was just magical. So I was just listening to spiritual podcasts and playing with flowers in the dirt, and I felt the closest I've been to peace and content in years. And I kind of put cancer on the back burner, and I wasn't doing a whole lot of treatments. I was just kind of naturally being healthy because I was outside and I was camping out in the woods, and it was good. And then I had to start this clinical trial about this time last year. And I left where I was at and went over to Seattle, and I could feel like the depression and the walls coming back in and the darkness. And it was terrifying, but it was also, just like you were saying, it was familiar and comfortable at the same time, but I couldn't stop it. And then I've just kind of sunk since then.
So if you're out, if you're gardening, expressing your spirit, expressing your heart, gardening, not worrying about if cancer comes and goes, cancer loses its attention, because putting attention on something makes it an experienced reality. So here your attention was in gardening. And then when you put your attention on the clinical trial, let's go back, nose to the grindstone, let's cure the cancer. You slipped back into that experienced reality of that identity.
Yeah.
And-
Well, and I've
and
got PTSD from our medical system. And I mean, say what you want about PTSD, but I've watched what happens to me, and it's.
So how were you in the garden? How were you in the garden? You were okay. You were happy. You were free. What would it take for you to choose that?
I don't know how to choose it.
You did choose it. Like right in this moment, and you have a choice to pick that up or pick this up, and whichever one you pick up is going to send you into an experienced reality that you're going to identify with. And in that moment is the only place you can make that perceived choice. And you may keep, like me, I kept going to the bag of cookies. That's the one I kept choosing until I was done. And you may do that. You do that until you finally go break down or whatever, in whatever way that looks like. But there might be a moment when you go this way, and then you go, okay, this was great. And then you go back this way for a couple months, right? And then you go, oh, wait, let me go this way again. Oh, here I am over here again. And you just watch that mechanic of you bouncing back and forth between where your focus is. Garden or somebody sick trying to get well. And you'll
Dreaming
slip
about
back.
garden.
And you will slip back and forth. It's probably just part of it. But that's where the revelations come. There are no mistakes. Everything that happens is an opportunity for me to see myself clearer and clearer. and the games my mind plays and how I believe some of them.
I got this. I think I have this huge fear around, in non-duality land, people talk about trauma waking people up all the time. That's kind of what brought me here. And but I'm terrified. Like, if I haven't woken up through all the shit that's happened to me, what else I'm like, what's gonna happen next? What's
What if you
coming?
just, what if you gave up the belief that trauma wakes people up? What if you gave that one up? Because that's just a thought too. It seems to occur, yeah, whatever. But if you believe that trauma is going to wake you up, well, what else would you have to keep creating so you could wake up?
I believe like that's my only shot.
Right. So
Because
what if you,
my
what if you
brain's
get-
such a mess that that's going to be my only way in, because
Okay,
I'm not
but
going
what
to
if
get
it's
there
not?
by being enlightened or, having all this knowledge or being like
What-
this zened out,
What if it's not? What if that's just a story that you've bought into and then created trauma for yourself, subconsciously or not, in it because you think it's your only way out? What if it's not? What if that right there is the mind lie that you don't need trauma and you're already awake?
Trauma may need to
great.
waking up, but it's not necessary, is it?
I
There
didn't
are
have any
people
trauma to wake
who-
me up.
Yeah,
I didn't have trauma to wake me up.
I did, but whatever.
Yeah. So what I'm just saying is it seems to be
Yeah.
for some people, but if you're buying that lie,
Yeah,
if you're buying the lie that is the way in and that's your only shot, then you would have to keep creating, you would have to keep experience perceived trauma, trying to wake up. But what if that's not true for you? What if the garden is your awakening? You're awake in the garden. Oh, I'm not done yet. Let me go back to trauma. The mind hooks you back in with that lie. You're already awake in the garden. You got no cancer in the garden. You're expressed in the garden. Peaceful in the garden. You're already awake in the garden. And then the mind throws that bait out. Come on, now everybody else says trauma. You're not there yet. Come on, let's go do some more trauma.
Jenny seems to be saying that go to the garden and you'll be okay. But it's not the garden. It's how you feel in the garden.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you do have, you are heavily identified as a victim. Which has
And if it takes,
got nothing to do with actually being a victim. It's the ownership feeling that you have about that. That's the issue.
and
So-
you can question every thought. I have trauma. Is it true? Are you sure it's true? How do you feel when you believe that thought that you have trauma and your mind is screwed up?
Completely
Who do you-
separate from everybody. That's how I
Yeah.
feel.
And so is it true that you have trauma, that you've believed? Are you positive it's true?
and who has trauma?
Who has trauma? And how do you act and how do you behave and what actions? Who would you be without that belief, without that thought? Because it's just a thought.
That's a big one. That's a big one. Without all of the shit that goes on for you, that has always gone on for you your whole life, Lisa Jane would disappear. She would poof into a puff of smoke and be gone. There'll be
And
nothing.
fight. What
Oh,
do you mean
no.
I haven't had trauma? What do you
Oh
mean?
no! Oh
Fight
no!
for it. Fight for it. I'm traumatized. My brain is screwed up. I have PTSD.
I know, and I get all that. I think I told you, Vince, that I had this vision once, and I don't know what I saw but like the Girl Scouts or the Boy Scouts, and they have those sashes and they get all their badges for like the different things that they've accomplished and done. I feel like I wear this sash and I've got a badge for all the different traumas that I've survived, and so there's like, even though it's totally fucked up, I know that my ego is like, yeah, you're badass. You've survived all this stuff. And look at all these other people. They complain about all these dumb things, and you've survived 1,000 times more than they have. And so
And you
there's
get
like this
accolades.
identity. Yeah, that gives me
Accolades
energy.
from your friends. Look
Jenny-
how you,
Jenny
right?
thinks that fucking cookies are as serious as what I've been through, for Christ's sake.
Yeah. So and then you get friends reflecting back your accolades. Look how strong you are. Look how you keep gritting through. You see the identity that's created in this trauma. Is it true that you have been traumatized, or is that just some memory in your mind that you're identifying with? Are you
And now,
traumatized?
no, think about one thing. This identity is fighting for its life.
Absolutely.
Just like every being is fighting for its life. So it will keep you at hold all the time by your throat, not to die. So you will keep coming back to it because it wants to live.
And if
And
you
you want
question,
to live.
when you say, I have PTSD, oh, is it true? Yes, it's true. Okay, well, are you sure it's true? I have proof. Okay, well, how do you feel when you believe that thought? How do you behave? What are your surroundings like? And can you see why it'd be more beneficial to give up that thought? Who would you be without it? Who would you be without the thought, I have PTSD, or I have trauma, or my brain is screwed up, or I need trauma to wake up? And you write down
I'd be in jail for all this stuff that I do in all the medical clinics. PTSD is what gets me out of it.
Well, there you
I'm
go.
allowed to kick garbage cans and knock things over and tell them all the things they're doing wrong, and
well, that identity is going to fight for it, like like Seb is saying, that identity is fighting to stay alive, and those are just a big rubber band ball of thoughts.
So what comes up here for me for a moment is maybe it's not a case of you just letting this go. Maybe you've got to become a murderer. Maybe you've actually got to kill the Lisa Jane identity of the survivor.
See how much you love it, how much you love being a victim. And you say, oh, people act like it's a badge of honor. Well, you just admitted it was, right? So it is.
Set Lisa against Jane and Jane against Lisa. Let them fight.
Yeah,
but that's what's been going on for years. That's why I'm so crazy and my brain hurts.
It wants to.
It feels like I remember when I first got diagnosed with cancer. I was 42 and I was a single mom, and my kids were little, and I was absolutely terrified. Like all the fear that I was so full of that I denied my whole life all came to the surface, and I could barely function. And this part of me took over, the part that you guys are talking about that's always been there, that part that has to fight to survive, that's pushed me. Okay, you got to get organized. You have to be somebody you've never been. You have to, I mean, like I used to volunteer at alternative cancer conferences. And so all I had to do was come up with the money for the plane ticket. And then I could get in and I could meet all the doctors and see all the latest treatments and figure out what was going on. And
so that's another identity. So you've got the person, the victim who's scared of cancer, and then you've got the overcomer. But those are just two of the different polarities of the same identity. The overcomer going to fight for the cancer. So depression is deep rest. I'm tired of being these characters. I'm tired of being all these characters. I'm exhausted fighting for cancer. I'm exhausted having cancer and being a victim. Even though I love the attention I get from it, I'm tired of
No,
loving the
but I don't love the attention I get from it at all. It feels like, who wants attention from being a victim? You know?
there's a part that does and a part that doesn't. Okay, so this person's saying I don't like it, this person's saying no, I really do like it. You see, so there's a part that likes it because it feels loved and it gets attention, and this other part goes, no, we hate it. So this is the victim with cancer, and this is the one who has to overcome it. That's the strong one, because now I get acknowledged for overcoming and being strong. But all of these identities are being acknowledged. And if you can say, yes, I do love them, and yet, no, I don't, because there's no one answer. You love them and you don't. Both. They're both true. But fighting is exhausting too. That's just another identity. Who you are is nothing.
I had a dream the other night, and I don't dream ever. But I remembered this, just, I told Vince about it, I was just falling, but I wasn't falling. There wasn't anything there. It was like skydiving, but there was no body, and it was terrifying. And I made myself wake up, you know.
You know, you could bring that dream back to the energy of that dream, back to memory, and bring back the falling, like in your imagination. And you can actually switch from terrifying to exhilarating. Exhilarating, because they're the same sensations with a different story.
Yeah.
We are all falling anyway.
Hmm.
Whatever we think on top of that, we are gonna die. The question is how, if we are in hell now or not. And you seem to be creating hell, living hell for you now. Not even in your past life, but now.
All past life
I
is
know
now.
it's easy to say, but the only way I found is to flush it, to leave it. We're talking about flushing the toilet last time. And it's really, you know, my tiny story from last half of the year is that obviously it's different caliber to yours, but I broke my leg really badly. Like it has crippled me completely, and the initial prognosis was that I will never walk again. And everybody was telling me how strong I am, that I am exercising, that I am doing that, doing this, all those physiotherapy things, life changed all around. Honestly, I didn't do it. I didn't do anything. Any of these things I didn't do. The only thing that I did do was that sometimes there were thoughts appearing. What if it didn't happen? Why it happened to me? The mind, because I am not in the mind state all of the time, I was able to notice these thoughts. They are not the reality for me. They were popping up. I was looking at them, how ridiculous they are, how irrelevant they are. And I was just kind of dismissing them, I guess, as
I like flushing them down the toilet.
senseless. Sorry?
I like flushing them down the toilet.
Yeah, because it is just stop. Come on. It's like you know, like a mosquito. You just go away. It's just you're not welcome, right? It's fine that you are here, but please don't bite me, right? You go away.
If it's a shit thought, just flush it.
Yeah, yeah. It's I am not strong fighting for my leg. There is no strength in it at all. There's nothing. I am just walking out of my home, exercising, coming back, taking a shower. I'm not doing it. It's just being done. It's like cat is waking up, eating, shitting, falling back to sleep. He's not thinking what is he going to do next. I will fall asleep, or maybe I will walk around. It's just not. It's the story of our mind that is glued on top of the things that really happen. There is no strength or weakness. It's all judgments. Again, stories and thoughts. It's all happening anyway. Whatever you think about it, it is going to happen. Whatever is going to happen is going to happen. Whatever is happening, it is happening.
But
You can think, you can judge.
Lisa knows this. She's had enough experience of this. It's always that business of why it doesn't last, why we go back to the pain.
You're not flushing enough. Just hang on that.
If you believe you need trauma to wake up, if you believe you're not already awake and you need trauma to wake up, and it's comfortable and it's familiar, and it gives you two egos. It gives you one where people share with you, and it gives you another one where people admire your strength. And if you write down everything you get from it, from having trauma, write down everything that benefits you.
Yeah, I've done all that, but none of those, I don't get those things from it anymore. That's all kind of shifted. So now I'm just isolating and kind of frozen because.
Yeah, you could be at the point where you're ready to just let them go. And that's a funny point. That's standing on the edge of the cliff. And that can bring up fear in that as well. So that's a possibility. In fact, we don't know, do we? We just don't know. But letting it all go is equally as possible as things staying the same.
It's just the fear of death.
And the choice to let it go is not really a choice anyway. One day you may just wake up and go, oh my God, I don't need that anymore.
Yeah.
And it's not something that you can say, okay, you can flush and flush and flush, or you could just let it play out. Whatever happens, it's happening. Like, we think we even have a choice in all of that. One day it just may let you go. You'll just see right through it.
See, flushing is an interesting one. I mean, it's another illusion. The idea that we can do something, like we can take a thought and we can dismiss it.
That does seem to happen, though.
It does seem to happen. That's but getting from the idea that it can happen. The trap is to move to the idea that we can do it. Yeah, so see the difference. It can happen. I can do it. So I have an overarching kind of a landscape that says, well, if choice is an illusion, then really I'll just do what life puts in front of me. Now, even when I say that, it sounds like I'm making a choice, and it sounds like I'm going to do what life puts in front of me. But no, that's not what I'm saying at all. It's just the way the words come out. So life makes decisions for me. Life offers. No matter how I say it, it's not right. Life offers me possibilities of what to do, or what's might be going to happen. And there's not really, when life offers me the possibility to do this, it doesn't close doors on other things. That's just a mental description again. There is just this thing in front of me to do, and it gets done. And it gets done with a pleasant, a willing surrender. Not even that. It just gets done because there it is. I've worked myself into a wordless state. I don't, that's how do we don't make decisions about what to do. Things happen.
It's like a kaleidoscope. And it seems like all these choices are happening, and it seems like we're making them happen. And it seems like, well, I can go ahead and flush, or I can go ahead and this, but actually it's like, it's like what Vince said. It's just what there is to do shows up and I do it. What there is to do shows up and I do it. I'm not doing it. It just gets done because it's what's happening. But the mind has this kaleidoscope of things. Well, here's a possibility, but if you don't choose that, then the mind likes to make up, oh, you failed. You should have taken it. That was your only out. And then it's like, oh no, here comes another one. It's just like this kaleidoscope of noise that's happening, but it simplifies into what's happening right now. What's happening right now. And then all this talking that happens with it. So are you going to flush or not? Oh, I don't know. Is the flower going to bloom, or is it going to, the bee going to hit it or not pollinate it? And who cares, because it won't matter. So you're fine. You're perfect. What's happening right now is what's happening. The mind is telling a bunch of stories about how you have some say in it. But I believe it's an organic kaleidoscope that's happening, and an unraveling that's happening. It's the best way I know how to describe it with words, which is so limited. And it's perfect, and it doesn't feel perfect, but that's part of the perfection of it. Is not supposed to feel perfect in the moment. It doesn't. And then when it does and you're in the garden, then it's supposed to. And that's just life happening. And then the realization.
Just turn around and look at the dog behind you.
Oh.
Yeah. So do you think that dog decides that it's going to get up there and lay down like that?
No.
Something, it just conditions, and it happens. It responds to what's going on. And because you're there, and because the lounge is there, and because of whatever, and that's the way it works out. It just does what's there to be done. It doesn't, not even, that's not right. There is just dogging happening.
And thinking the same, like your thoughts of trauma or this or waking up or that, that's just thinking happening. And even believing the thoughts until you're done, until the thought believing, because there's no one believing even thoughts. So thought believing runs out. It'll finally just run out. It'll go down the rabbit hole until it's done rabbit holing, and then it'll just like, oh, okay, And then a new thought will come, and there's no one even thinking the thoughts. So,
Well, I have a question back to my dog Des. So he came from the Rosebud Sioux Reservation in South Dakota. And when I got him, he was starving to death. He was bald. He looked like a hyena. He was covered with sores. He was on his way out. And I helped bring him back. And he's amazing. He's the most grateful being I've ever known. I mean, I'm pretty sure he had a kind of a shitty year, that first year of his life, because of the way that he came to me. But he is happy. People describe him as being happy. They talk about what a happy dog, blah, 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 when they see us out on the trail and stuff. But he's definitely got an eating disorder. I mean, anytime there's a wrapper, he is so hyper vigilant. And we've been traveling since I have him. So we've stayed a lot of different places, and he's smart, and he's learned what he needs to do to get along and, to be okay. And but the food thing is the one thing that will push him over the edge. And that's trauma, right?
Oh,
is it? Or is
I
it
don't
just
know. What is it? That's what I'm asking.
That's what I'm saying, is maybe it's just what's happening. Maybe it's just what's happening, and he's okay and nothing's broken.
but it's both those things, and we imagine about the trauma, and that explains something,
It's just a label, isn't it?
but we don't actually know. We just imagine that's the case, and it's probably a useful story in that way, right? What we do know is that he has certain behaviors around certain foods or things to be eaten, and that's all we know. We don't know why. We don't know what causes it. We just have imagination about that.
And we can even watch the mechanics of it and make adjustments, such as maybe not feeding him around make sure whatever the thing is, but to label trauma on it sends out a whole energy about it. But if it's just what's happening, then the mechanics of, this happens when this happens with food, and there might be some insight and just an adjustment, but it's not labeled trauma. You see the whole identity around he has trauma, and now you've got to fix it because something's wrong, and now you've got to help him. Seeing the mechanics of something with neutral curiosity.
But I guess if I wouldn't have helped him, he would have died. So was he just supposed to die?
No. So, okay, let's say here's a dog and he's bald and he's got all these problems, right? Neutral curiosity just sees what's happening and makes adjustments. He's traumatized is an emotional imprint.
Yeah, just stop, Jenny, for a moment. Just go back a step, Lisa. What did you do then when you said, was I supposed to just let him die? What did you do? That was a giant jump. Here we've got this peaceful animal asleep almost behind you, enjoying closeness to you, and you're talking about him dying.
When she rescued him, he was dying.
I know that. But right now, in the present, you did this huge leap back into something. So can you see that was one of those things that was worthy of flushing? Can you see what the process was that happened when you just immediately jump back into, well, I was supposed to let him die? Same thing when you say, if I stop fighting the cancer, I'll die. You don't know that. But you make that same leap that you just did with the dog.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you were accused. And
yeah,
you
and
had to
sorry, Seb, yeah.
And you had to defend violently.
Yes. It's like because I said neutral curiosity can still have adjustments made. dog gets rescued, dogs gets bathed, dogs get brought home, dog gets loved, dog gets happy. But what you heard was, without the emotional imprint of trauma, you would have let him die.
Yeah. And that's not true. You wouldn't.
And same with the eating problems, you know, the eating happenings. To neutral curiosity of eating behaviors and adjustments out of neutral curiosity without label traumatized doesn't mean the adjustments of maybe correcting that certain happening wouldn't still happen, just without the drama part.
See, I believe that you rescued that dog, and they're the words we're using to describe what happened, but it's not what actually happened. But that dog coming into your life and the happenings that happened after that was for a whole lot of reasons. And probably the most fundamental reason is your own trauma that you've been through. Right? You were able to identify with the dog. And so you had this great compassion, this empathy and compassion for it. And out of that came this wonderful feeling of connection and love and care that you then applied to the situation, or that happened, because of all of the conditions that happened in the dog's life, all of the conditions that have happened in your life, all of the conditions that happened in anybody who's involved in it, the vet in their life. You know, it was all a result of a million different conditions, circumstances. And yet we just use the words, oh, well, I rescued it. I fixed it up.
I know.
It would have happened anyway, and it could not have happened any other way. Now, that's a big one. Can you see that? It could not have happened any other way. Why? Because all of the conditions that it required for it to happen the way it did were what was present. For it to happen any other way, any one of those conditions had to be different. And they weren't. They were what they were. And that's why it happened the way it did. No choice, no decision, just life unfolding.
Yeah, and I guess that is what I've learned from him. You know, I've rescued or taken in a lot of animals in my life, but he was, yeah, there was a lot that went down for him to come to me. But, you know, I remember I was going to this sweat lodge up in the mountains here, and I got out of my truck, and this bald little hyena thing came running up to me, and he stunk so bad. And I looked at him, and the words that came into my mind were, there you are. That was, you know,
Yeah.
and I didn't know anything, nothing, you know. And yeah, it's been, and then, you know, when I was taking care of him, you know, my vet, everybody told me he was going to die, but I never thought that.
Mm.
And I didn't have a whole lot of thoughts about it. I just did all the things I needed to do. And I used all, you know, I used Chinese medicine and herbs and all kinds of things and conventional medicine to bring him back. But when I look back on my life, like, that's who you guys are talking about. That's like, I overrode all the crazy in my brain. It was kind of like when my kids were born, and all the things that I was taught by my family and how you're supposed to raise your kids. And, you know, even like from the earliest days with breastfeeding and whether they sleep in a crib or sleep with you, I overrode all the conditioning and followed my heart, which I haven't done for most of my life. And I think that that's kind of like the place that you guys are talking about, where you're coming from, is where you're just doing everything just kind of comes from this knowing, or it's not even a knowing, it's just, but it's coming from somewhere different from me figuring it out in my head.
Mm.
Yeah.
But
Could I just say something,
Of course.
please? I really understand where you're coming from. Well, I hope I understand. And I feel a lot of compassion for you and the rescuing the dog and things. And I just want to say that when I was younger and going through it into my late when I had the kids and stuff, I saw a psychiatrist and he labelled me as an over dramatist. I over dramatize things. And at the time, it absolutely quashed me. It really upset me that he used this term. But I took it away and I looked at it and I thought, yeah, I think I do. I think I do over dramatize things. Not, I don't mean that to be a negative or in any way slight, but I did over dramatize things. But that was part of me, and I was sort of addicted to it. I have addictive personality, I know that, and I was addicted to the drama, and that was a hard one because I identified with it, and that was such a strong identification for me. And I had to look at that, and I thought, what is it that I'm getting off on here? And it was the fact that I saw myself as different. And I was different because I had all this drama. And much like yourself, I kept falling into these they were really dramatic situations. And I thought, am I making these happen? But the more I looked at it, the more I didn't want to lose that in me. That was part of me. And it was so hard to lose because I was different and a bit quirky and a bit adventurous and a bit. And suddenly, if I lost all that, where were I? What did I have to offer? It's a real tough one to look at, and I just had a feeling that might be some part of perhaps I don't know, but the crossroads that you come into. Perhaps you need to look at it, but I don't know. I don't want to suggest things, but that's my story anyway.
Isn't all this exactly the self that we want to lose? All these stories, it's exactly what we want to lose. This is it.
yeah. Helen, I totally get everything you're saying because that's exactly how I felt. And I mean, I used to make jokes about being a recovering drama queen and all the things. And I mean, and there was fun that came with it too, and there's always something exciting, something going on. But then I pushed myself with all that drama right into cancer. And then it was like, whoa, no, wait a minute. Went too far. And then
I had the cancer too. 4 years ago, I had cancer, and it was a kidney cancer, and I had to have a kidney removed. And for some reason, I didn't do a drama thing around that. I didn't do one. I was petrified, absolutely petrified. But I didn't do a drama thing around it. And they took the kidney and that was it, and sent me on my way, But yeah, I feel for you. You're in a difficult time. Yeah.
I am just so pleased you're here. I think that's great. I had bowel cancer, so just to join the club. That was back in 1997. It was so long ago. It was like it happened to a different person. I don't even relate to it anymore. Except I've got these shitty little things on my belly where they didn't sew it up properly and the bits pop through. Yeah. But there. So I wonder if that will ever happen for you, Lisa Jane, that you will remember back to your cancer almost like it was somebody else that it happened to. Maybe you'll get to that point too. That's a nice fantasy, isn't it?
Amazing. Yeah.
Mm.
You've been very quiet, Eric. Any thoughts about what we're talking about?
No, it's real interesting. I mean, everybody is going through different things. I think I was just thinking how my whole life, I wake up in the morning and I know what I'm going to do. It's always been that way. It's all some new interest, whatever. And some while ago, I just thought, what would happen if I woke up and I didn't know what to do? You know, that was a little bit of a scary feeling, because I've never had it.
Mm.
Um,
Did it persist? Did that feeling stay around?
no, not really, because it just seems like every day I do know what I'm going to do. And mostly I think I deal with turmoil that other people have, and not being in this state where I don't know, I can't solve it. There's nothing I can do, and just feeling helpless. Dealing with other people's anger. And so I think actually that was why I started wanting to come back into, as I was saying, like revisit this project I had from when I was, 55 years ago, or whatever it was, when I was 18 and was searching for enlightenment. And I guess I found peace. I feel like I've had a pretty peaceful life. But I know there's still this thinking part that just, I'd like to not care whether, not walk into a situation and wonder what people think about me, or want them to think great thoughts about me, or, when I'm not around other people, I feel pretty okay. But yeah, I kind of, those are more of the kinds of things that I'm dealing with, things that I can't solve myself, and yet I still have to kind of say, this is reality. It's not your position to solve it, and yet it still affects me. It's because they're family members.
Yeah.
And
So
it's
when you get with other people, that concern about how they're perceiving you, does that persist, or does it just there in the beginning and go away?
I guess it mostly goes away, but it's always there. I think if I'm in a group of people, that will come up. It's like I'll be kind of thinking about it. Maybe it's a typical thing that people do. If you have to talk in front of people, you think, oh, what are people going to think about me? It's like, it doesn't, it's not like what do you say, like a hurdle that I can't get over. But
Yeah,
it'd
yeah.
be nice to be able to
If it
just
wasn't there, yeah.
say whatever,
Mm.
and because I think it also affects the way that you can enjoy being around other people. If you're thinking like, I want to be recognized or something like that. But so yeah, that's kind of,
Yep. So you recognize, I would presume that you recognize already that everybody, if you had 10 people standing up looking at a painting, for example, you're going to get 10 different responses. Everybody, you want to attend to something?
oh no, someone was
Yeah, okay. So I imagine that you would recognize that everybody is going to have a unique view, a unique response to that painting that they all were looking at. Yeah. And if you were the painting, then 10 people are going to have 10 different opinions about you. And they're all of their opinions are going to be based on their own experiences in life, the
yeah.
conditions and everything. Yeah. And you could be one of the 10 yourself. You could have an opinion about yourself based on your own filters, the experiences of in your history and your DNA and your preferences and so on will filter how you see yourself, just as how you see somebody else. In fact, I'd go as far as to say that your experience, the conditions that have led you to be the way you are, is so pervasive that what you see when you look at another person is in fact yourself. What you see is so conditioned by your experiences, by your history, by your DNA, by all of that stuff, that all you can see in another person is your version of them. You get that? You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think so. I actually joined a local sangha. Had no idea, when I was studying Buddhism, it was like there was one teacher, two or three teachers in the United States, 1965. And like I said, just a few months ago, and I looked around and there's a Vietnamese Buddhist monastery 6 minutes from the house. There's another one 10 minutes from the house. There's another one that's just beyond that. And it's like, my goodness, the whole, it's just fascinating to me. And so I kind of wanted to kind of get back into see, man, I was talking to this really right-wing person and mentioned something. They said, oh yeah, that's mindfulness. I was saying, whoa, it's like all the things that like a young person in 1965 or 1963, when I first got interested in Buddhism, it's just like in the air now. It's just around everywhere. And then I found this group, people are having this waking up experience. And I thought, wow, that's fascinating. And, for me, I had this experience, when I was 21, but it was a short-lived thing. And after that, the thinking came back, and but it was the most astonishing, delightful, just feeling wonderment that I just have never experienced before or since.
Yeah.
And it,
Do you imagine that you can get to this stage and stay there permanently?
oh, that's kind of my question, because I I think at that time, that's what it was so clear and so real that I couldn't imagine that it wasn't going to always be there. And then it was like in the evening, and I was in a retreat, and it just like it happened, and I just within like a second, and I said, it's total astonishment. And just I went through an interview with the Roshi after that, and it was like there's no I have nothing to prove anymore, nothing to be approved of, no one to be approved of. It's like I just felt so peaceful, and it's like there's no more fear, no more searching, no more doubt. It's all gone.
Mhm.
But yeah, no, it comes back.
Well, what actually happened? What actually happened in that state is that you were operating from your right brain predominantly.
Mhm.
And when you lost it, you flipped back over to your left brain, the critical one, the left brain that demands explanations and descriptions all the time, the left brain that wants to be in control of everything. But the right brain is just such a beautiful, wonderful, loving, accepting place to view the world from. And so this is really when we do this stuff that we're doing now, is that we're really retraining our brain, and we're moving over to right brain operation rather than left brain. Now that's just a biological story that explains what happened to you and why you lost it, right? All your life, you've been lifting weights with your left brain. All your life, your left brain has become so muscular because from the moment you go to school and we put mind up on a pedestal, what we're doing is developing the muscles of our left brain. And so when people talk about, oh, it's always there, you've always got it, you're always there, what they're talking about is right brain operation. And in order to be right-brained, you simply need to allow the left brain to not be dominant, which
Yeah.
is very, it's not something you can actually do, but you can train it. You can train your left brain to do it. And so when Seb's talking about flushing shitty thoughts, what we've been talking about, essentially the technique that I find most useful with people is to simply recognize when you're having a left brain response to something. So when you are lost in the content of thought and you're acting out that thought, the content of that thought, the recognition that that's what's happening is the key point for changing the way the brain works. So if you can, when you recognize that you have been lost in thought, even if it's a day later, it doesn't matter how long afterwards, celebrate the fact that you recognized it.
Mhm.
It's a really big deal. And how you celebrate it is you laugh. Even if you just fake it. Doesn't matter. A laugh changes the hormones in the body, but it also celebrates, and keep this in mind, you're celebrating the recognition. You're not having an opinion about the fact that you were lost. That doesn't matter. What does matter is that you recognize that you were lost. And if you celebrate that recognition, I'll tell you within weeks, you'll start to develop new pathways in the right brain. Left brain stuff will become less active. It'll happen very, very quickly. So from a biological point of view, that's a good way to look at it.
That was, I did read about somebody who had damage in the left hemisphere, and they reported just colors, everything, the senses were just, the color is just beautiful, vibrant. And I mean, I think that was partly what I was experiencing.
Absolutely.
Though I think it was a little, some of that, but I really recognized, what he was talking about, that, but it's difficult to be there, to let the brain stop manufacturing stuff.
Yeah. And you can't actually do it. So
yeah,
when I say celebrate the recognition, the implication is that that's something you can do, that you have control to do that. But the reality isn't that at all. The reality is that because I've mentioned it, and because of your other interests, and because of, in fact, everything that's ever happened in the world since the beginning of time, because of all of those conditions, it may well be that the idea to laugh pops up as a result of the recognition. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. But if it does, it does. So once again, we're not really talking about doing anything. We're talking about possibilities.
Yeah.
So just adding the conditions of talking about it might make it possible to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's kind of what I've been working on, is just trying to see, like, how long a thought goes before I can recognize it's a thought. Sometimes it goes on for, a couple breaths or 3 breaths before oh, that's just a thought. And not just kind of staying on the train. I mean, it does seem like you can just see it and then, okay, that's just a thought. I'm going to go back and follow my breath, or
Yep.
or just wait for the
That's
next
just a thought as well. That's another thought, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
The illusion, of course, is if you then go back to following your breath, you go, oh, I was successful with that.
Just another thought.
Yeah.
I remember that state, Eric, from my experience, exactly how you describe it. And I remember seeing, kind of, with my right hemisphere, my left hemisphere's thoughts appearing, happening, and disappearing, going away. I remember all that. That was funny. Well, it is actually, because it is happening all the time. It's just if we kind of see it, are aware of it or not. That's the only difference.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I was just introduced to that idea of the 10 fetters, and I guess I realized that I had just had this notion that you could just have some experience and all of a sudden everything would be perfect. And I'm kind of believing maybe that was sort of a naive notion, maybe that can be useful for someone to, I don't know, meditate or do something, but it seems like I don't, that thought isn't occurring to me so much anymore. And I'm kind of appreciating, I think what I'm imagine this group is more involved in is just authentically seeing what you're experiencing and recognizing it, and then letting it dissolve, hopefully, if it wants to.
That's a pretty good description, I guess. Yeah. Okay, well, we've been at it 3 hours, so I think it's probably time to wrap up. Yeah, there's a classic example of how time's elastic. Yeah. It seems like about 10, 15 minutes, eh? To
Yeah.
me, it does. Yeah. But 3 hours, right. Okay, so well, all right. Unless somebody's got anything, I'll call a halt for the moment. And I do hope to see you all again next week. That's been great. Yeah. Yeah. All right.
Thanks, Vince. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
See
Thank
you next
you.
week.
everybody.
Hang on. Oh, she's gone.